What's up, good people? Welcome back to Journey in Theology with Elder J. Back again. I wanted to talk to you guys, wanted to continue that series that I'm doing. Wanted to talk to you guys about theological changes that have happened in my life, where I am today, where I used to be. And today I want to talk to you guys. I called this the redeeming time. This is another theological shift that has happened for me. Um, and so it's been a while since I've been with you guys. I got 2 weeks left on my get to before I can finish all my requirements for my Master's of Divinity. Got my hair growed out. I'm just looking a whole hot mess because I'm like ready for this thing to be over. But I wanted to come in and talk to you guys because we're coming towards the time of the holidays, and I really did want to talk to you guys about the redemption of time, and because that is something that changed for me. And so I figured I want to do this now and get it out while it's the holiday season, while we're leading into the holiday season, so that um, it can be a fresh perspective. So um, let me explain to you first, like we always do. I got to talk to you about where I was prior, and then we'll talk about where I am now. This video might be a little longer because because the journey that I've been on, right? So, growing up, you guys know, come from a Baptist tradition. Baptist tradition, you have two Christian holidays, right? Essentially, you got Christmas and Easter. There's a couple things that go on around Easter, right? So you're going to have Palm Sunday the Sunday before, you're going to have Good Friday right before, right? We did celebrate those. Palm Sunday, everybody got the palms, all that good stuff. Good Friday, people came out. Normally they would do a seven last words type service. That was normally a service. People preach for about 10, 15 minutes, and it'd be like seven basically sermonettes. So that was the general thing. Christmas time was normally we celebrated. When I grew up, we didn't actually come out to church on Christmas Day unless Christmas Day fell on a Sunday. Matter of fact, I don't even know if we celebrated on that Sunday or not, or maybe it was an abbreviated service. I just can't remember it actually falling on a Sunday, but I'm sure it did at some point. But generally, the week before Christmas, we would have like some, big production, to be like a play that has to do with either play where people are acting like Mary and Joseph and Jesus, or to be something more like a contemporary play, but has themes about the reason for the season, Jesus being the reason for the season, that kind of thing. So essentially, that was it. As I began to grow in the Lord and start doing my own studies and starting to figure out why we do this, why we do that, you guys know I ended up at some point in the Hebrew Roots movement. When you end up in the Hebrew Roots movement, one of the first things where they go after is they want to get you to remember the Sabbath. So that automatically they begin to pitch you against Sunday, right? Sunday is not the real day. That was chosen for a pagan day, a pagan festival to celebrate the sun, that kind of thing, right? That's initially the first thing that you do. After that, they're like, Easter is just like the goddess Ishtar, Astarte. And that's why you have the bunnies and the eggs, right? Because you have fertility and all that other kind of stuff. So they try to get you off of that. And then you go to Christmas. Oh, that was Saturnalia or Sol Invictus. So you kind of, that's pagan. Jeremiah says you're not supposed to take trees and deck it with silver and gold, right? So you get in all that realm. And so I got caught up in all of that. And so therefore I kind of dropped both. So I wasn't like what I try to do is be somewhat balanced, but to my Christian friends, I was imbalanced, but I tried to be somewhat balanced, right? So on Christmas, it wasn't like I stayed in the house, locked my doors, I ain't going nowhere, right? No, we went out, went to hang out with family. I figured, hey, it's never a bad time to celebrate with family, not a big deal, eat or whatever. But I refused to do things like go out and shop and all that other kind of stuff. I was like, nope, not going to happen. And I ain't putting Jesus on this. This ain't got nothing to do with him. This is just purely a secular holiday, right? And then with Easter, I was able to still celebrate Easter. I didn't really call it Easter. I called it Resurrection Day, or I called it First Fruits. When I got into the Hebrew roots movement, I called it First Fruits. And I mean, I still kind of mess around with I still call it Resurrection, stuff like that. I'm not as pagophobic. That's what I call. That's my word, pagophobic. I don't mind using the phrase Easter. I'm using Easter a lot more in this conversation because most of you know what I'm readily talking about when I say Easter. So, be, what I started celebrating was the holy days, right? Because I was like, you get rid of Christmas and Easter, then what are we supposed to celebrate? We're humans. Obviously God has to give us something that we get to celebrate it, some milestones or whatever. And what I did was I adopted, and like many in the Hebrew roots movement, many of those who you find in like Hebrew Israelites and stuff like that, they will take on the feast of the Lord, the days that are listed in the Torah. And so you'll celebrate Passover and unleavened bread, and you'll celebrate first fruits and Pentecost or the Feast of Weeks. You celebrate trumpets and the Day of Atonement and the Feast of Tabernacles. I think that's all of them. I might miss a couple. There are two others that are out there that some celebrate, some don't, which are Purim and Hanukkah. So Jewish people celebrate all those days I said, but they also celebrate Purim and Hanukkah. When I was in the Hebrew roots movement, I didn't celebrate Purim. I recognized all of the holy days. I only celebrated really one because I was able to celebrate that because it was around Easter time. The church I was going to, we kind of incorporated it into a celebration of the death, burial, and resurrection. So we actually celebrated Passover as a congregation. We would all come out, have like a potluck meal, have communion at that meal, and a sermon at that meal. And then, but that wasn't something I was able to celebrate at home. So at home, the feast that fit for us to be able to celebrate at home was Hanukkah. So that's what we celebrated when I got home. I celebrated Hanukkah towards the end of the year. It was during around close to Christmas time. So it was still like you could still get into the holiday spirit like everybody, except you're not buying red and green, you're buying blue and silver and white and stuff like that, right? So that's kind of what we did. So we incorporated that as a tradition for our family to do Hanukkah. So when I began to study these things out and get a little bit further, remember, I'm in this theological journey, right? I get to the point where I'm now starting to see the importance of being Catholic, right? According to the whole, universal, attaching myself to the universal church, saying, why are we making up things when the church has already been doing things for years and years and years? What's wrong, right? And so when I enter into this type of thinking, and now that my ecclesiology has changed, now I'm looking at the holy days comes up, because I don't see the church looking at Sunday as something pagan. I see the church who have been celebrating for the longest time, right? I see the writings of old, as far back as we can go, that show that they were celebrating on Sunday, right? I don't. So I was okay with that one. That was an easy one to accept. But then, the celebration of the resurrection and all that kind of stuff. I see early celebrations for that. I see early celebrations for things like Pentecost. I was like, this is beautiful. In the grand scheme of things, even Christmas is early, right? I could see evidences of that up to the 3rd century and all that kind of stuff. And after doing my studies, I could see that we don't see a whole lot of primary source evidence that says, hey, what are the pagans over there doing? Cool, let's take that day and make it ours. You don't see hardly any of that. Most of that is haters that's been saying that and hypotheses that come up with that. But there's other things that's out there, the reasons why this day would have been chosen for the day of Jesus's birth. I studied all of that and I was like, cool. So I got over that part, but the part I had a problem with was, but it's not in the Bible, right? I got past, well, maybe they didn't choose it because it was pagan, but it was like, but I can't just turn in my Bible to here's my celebration, right? But then God used, and I'm saying this, God, I believe God used one of the celebrations that I was already doing to show me that in the redemption of time, the people of God have the right to redeem time the way they see fit, as long as it's glorifying to God. I'm gonna say that again, and this will help some of you if you can get this. The people of God have the right to redeem time back to God the way they see fit. Now I'm gonna show you a couple ways that I saw this first. So I'm gonna show you guys first, and we talked about this right already. Purim. So Purim can be found in the book of Esther, starting at chapter 9, starting at the 20th verse. So it says, Mordecai recorded these events and sent letters to the Jews near and far throughout all the provinces of King Xerxes. This is also known as King Ahasuerus, calling on them to celebrate an annual festival for 2 days. He told them to celebrate these days with feasting and with gladness, and by giving of gifts of food to each other and presents to the poor. This will commemorate the time when the Jews gained relief from their enemies, and when their sorrow was turned into gladness and their mourning into joy. So the Jews accepted Mordecai's proposal and adopted this annual custom. So notice there, the Jews accepted Mordecai's proposal. So Mordecai is the one who's saying, hey guys, we just survived something traumatic. We just had a deliverance that came from the Lord. So we need to celebrate these days, right? And it was actually 2 days. I think if you go down to verse 26, it says, that is why the celebration is called Purim, because the ancient word for casting lots. So Mordecai sent a letter to become what is because of what they had experienced. The Jews throughout the realm agreed to inaugurate this tradition and to pass it on to their descendants and all who became Jews. They declared that they would never fail to celebrate these 2 prescribed days at their appointed times each year. These days would be remembered and kept from generation to generation, and they celebrated by every family throughout the provinces and cities of the empire. This festival of Purim would never cease to be celebrated among the Jews, nor would the memory of what had happened ever die out among their descendants. So they said, we received this something God, we seem to receive some deliverance from God on these 2 days. So therefore, Mordecai says, look, guys, how about we celebrate this day or these 2 days every year to remind us of the redemption, the deliverance that God gave to us. And There was no prophet saying, "Thus saith the Lord, thou shalt celebrate these 2 days." This was something that Mordecai was like, yo, this is awesome. We should celebrate this. He sends out letters throughout the kingdom. All the Jews say, sure, this is great. Let's do it. And then they do it. They call it Purim because Purim meaning to cast lots, because that's what was happening to them. And it became a holiday that is still celebrated unto this very day because the Jews came up with that. The people of God had the right to redeem time the way that they wanted to, as long as it glorified God. Let me give you another example. The celebration that we celebrated, I told you guys, we actually celebrated Hanukkah, right? You could find Hanukkah in first Maccabees, first and second Maccabees, actually, chapter 4. If you go through verse 56, says, so they were being again oppressed by some oppressors. They came, they ransacked the temple, they desecrated it. The Jews was able to fight back to kick off their enemies off the temple. And during that time, they said, we have to get the temple to be back to God honoring. So they took 8 days to cleanse it and to get it back to where it's supposed to be. And then they were going to rededicate this to the Lord. Verse 56, it says, so they celebrated the dedication of the altar for 8 days and joyfully offered burnt offerings. They offered a sacrifice of well-being and a thanksgiving offering. They decorated the front of the temple with golden crowns and small shields, and restored the gates of the chambers for the priests, and fitted them with doors. There was very great joy among the people, and the disgrace brought by the Gentiles was removed. So they're celebrating. They celebrated this dedication for 8 days. They even decorated. They hung around golden shields and crowns and stuff like that, and put the gates up, and it was joy because of what God had done. Verse 59. Then Judas with all his brothers and all the assembly of Israel determined that every year at that season, the days of dedication of the altar should be observed with joy and gladness for 8 days, beginning with the 25th day of the month of Kislev. So again, this was not, and then the Lord sent a prophet. Thus saith the Lord, because of this great deliverance, thou shalt celebrate 8 days and do this. That's not what happened. They said, you know what, guys, this was an amazing thing that the Lord has done for us. How about we do this the same time every year? Let's celebrate it for 8 days. And they celebrated what they says the dedication of the altar. Dedication in Hebrew, Hanukkah. And that is where Hanukkah comes from today. Hanukkah is an 8-day festival. Hanukkah means dedication. So it is the feast of dedication. And nowhere in the inauguration of Purim, nowhere in the inauguration of Hanukkah do we see the Lord being angry with them or anything like that. Why? Because the people of God have the right to redeem time the way they see fit. So as long as it honors God, right? So when I realized that the people of God have the right, well, if the Jews were able to say, you know what, we're going to celebrate a holiday, give it to God. We're going to celebrate these 2 days and we're going to call it this. We're going to celebrate these 8 days and call it this. Why then can the church not do the same thing? And so that's what got me over the final hump that says, okay, cool, let's do it. But then at the time I was like, but it's still only Christmas and Easter. One of the things that I had appreciated when I was in the Hebrew roots was that there was a flow. There was a, like you could, it was a structure with all those holidays. Your whole year was kind of surrounding these days. And it was kind of like, during this time is even different focuses you did. When it was Passover time, you started to read about Jesus's death, burial, and resurrection. During the time of trumpets and tabernacles, you started to read about, the second coming of the Lord and what happens in the end times. And it was like, it had this flow to it where when you just got Christmas and Easter, it's like it doesn't have the flow. And when I started to realize, and when I started to study these things, I started to realize, wait a minute, the church understood that. And the church actually has a larger calendar than just these 2 days. And it's more seasonal so that it has the same type of flow. And when I realized that, it actually met the need that I had developed. And so I wanted to share this with you guys because some of you may not know. This here is the Christian liturgical calendar, right? And so this is how much of the church actually celebrates, right? More than just one here and one there. It's actually a flow to this, to the year. And so the year is broken down into 2 halves. The first half of the year is the story of Jesus. And then the second half will be the story of the people of God. That would be us. So it starts here at Advent at the beginning. And Advent starts towards the end of November, beginning of December. You guys see that. And one of the things that I like as well is liturgical. When you get involved into the liturgical calendar, you also notice that each season or each holiday or each holy day is also represented by colors. So churches who follow these things actually decorate their churches with these colors. So when you walk into this church, you've entered into a new season because all the decor and everything that you see, all the altar decorations, the pulpit decorations, the banners that may be hanging on the walls, they all have different colors on them based on where you are in the year. So you start the year in Advent. And Advent is celebrated on the Sundays, right? And it's the 4 Sundays before Christmas Day, right? So whatever day Christmas is on, go the 4 Sundays before that. The first one is when Advent begins. Advent is a word, it comes from the Latin word adventus, which is the Latin translation of the word for coming, right? In Greek, that word is parousia. In Latin, the word is adventus. So when you see Advent, that means it talks about the coming. And so this is a celebration of the coming, the anticipation, the hope of anticipating the return, the coming of Jesus Christ. But it also, because it precedes and goes right before Christmas, it also looks backwards and being thankful for his first coming. So Advent puts you in the mind again of Jesus, his second coming, looking forward, and his first coming, looking backward. And so I like this holiday and I like Advent because it takes you out of the mindset. If you just have Christmas, when you're leading up to Christmas, you're thinking, okay, about shopping, you're thinking about this, you're thinking about that. Well, if you get involved into this here, Advent puts you in the mindset of, no, we're thinking about Jesus, 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 right? His coming and when he first came and when he's coming again. And you get to structure your readings around that. You start reading about, again, like the eschatological stuff, but then you also get to go back and think about his birth, right? And that color is normally celebrated with a purple color. From Christmas Day You get the change, it changes to white, and that's the celebration of his birth. But Christmas is also a season. So Christmas doesn't just last one day, it lasts for 12 days. You guys heard the song 12 Days of Christmas. Christmas lasts from December 25th all the way to January 6th. Actually, December 25th and January the 6th are actually the first, those are the 2 days that was disputed for when Jesus was actually born on early on when you do your research. And so that became a season, right? So uh, December 25th became the Feast of Nativity or Christmas. And then January the 6th became what's known as Epiphany. And during that time, you will wear white. Epiphany is the manifestation, and it's also the celebration of when the Magi came and presented gifts to Jesus. And then after that is the season of Epiphany, which is a very short season. Sometimes they still continue to wear white, and other times they may wear green. Then you run into Lent. You guys seen Lent before? People are fasting, they're praying for like 40 days leading up to the Easter time. Well, that again is you're going back into purple mode. You're thinking about and reflecting on what Jesus has done, and you're thinking about the getting yourself right, thinking about where you're falling short, areas where you need to, vices that you may have, things like that you're trying to get rid of. And then you go into Easter time, which is you starting off with Palm Sunday, and then you go through Maundy Thursday, that whole Holy Week before Easter. You got your Palm Sunday, then they will have something called Maundy Thursday, which is celebration of the giving, the first time of the Lord's Supper, and also the day they may do foot washing on that day because that's when Jesus actually washed the disciples' feet. Then you'll have Good Friday, celebration, of course, of his death, and then Easter Sunday, Resurrection Sunday. And so that season, you're going to be wearing white. And then you're going to wear that throughout the entire Easter season until you get to Ascension, which represents his going up and leaving the earth finally. Because remember, he stayed around for 40 days talking with his disciples after his resurrection, but on the ascension is when he finally left. And then 10 days after the ascension, you run into Pentecost. Pentecost is when the Holy Spirit comes down. That is represented by red. That's the power and the fire of God upon us. And then after Pentecost, you run into what's called ordinary time. So this is the story of us, right? So when you look at it, the season of the year ebbs and flows, right? It starts off talking about Jesus, 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 various events of his life. And these are just the big days. There are smaller, little, tiny little feasts that's all throughout here or whatever. But these are like the larger events. And it starts off talking about Jesus, and then it ends. You start off talking about Jesus, his first coming, but then it ends with the Holy Spirit descending down. And then the rest of the year is our working out what Jesus has done, our imitation of Jesus, our displaying of the power of God upon us to be like Christ throughout the rest of the year. And that's the largest portion of the year, and is represented by green. So it's an amazing thing when you get to operate like this and understand that the church, we are the people of God. And so we were able to redeem time, and to redeem time in this way, there's nothing wrong with it. And so this is something that I had to learn. I had to get to a certain point. I had to adjust. I had to renew my mind, but it's been something that's been great because now it's anticipatory. I love the color changes. I love I still able to change my readings up depending on where I am in the season, all of that good stuff. So as we're going into Advent, actually. This is going to be posted on Advent 1, the first Sunday of Advent. So that's technically the beginning of the Christian calendar. Advent 1 in the West, anyway, the Western Christian calendar, we begin in Advent and then we go all the way to the end of November again next year. So hopefully this was helpful for you guys. Just again, showing you guys my journey, showing you guys another area where I had to learn and grow. But I want to reiterate the people of God. If you don't get anything else I'm saying, I want you to understand this. The people of God have the right to redeem time back to God. As long as it's God honoring, they can redeem time the way they see fit back to God. So I'm going to end it here, guys. I'll be back with another way that I've changed, another way that I've grown, another way that you see me, some differences that I had before. And, hopefully after that, next time you see me again, I will also have finished my classwork and, ready to move on to bigger and better things. All right, guys, peace out.